with BBC Radio 5 Live from midday. Thursday night on BBC One, and this is gonna be groovy, baby.
Tonight is the This Week's Summer Special. What dreadful rip-off could they be cooking up now?
Hello, Austin. We need your help. The country is in crisis.
Can Austin Powers, international man of mystery, rescue Britain?
Yeah, baby. I think with this Brexilicious business, I may have bitten off more than I can chew.
Forget the Maybot? Is our Vanessa Kensington a fembot under the control of Dr. Evil?
I'm not under the control of anyone.
What has become of the lovely Miranda Green?
Andrew, get on with it!
And why has the faming lips Wayne Coyne got a smile on his face?
Because I love this week. What's this week?
It's the sort of malaise that only the genius possesses and the insane lament.
I'll take that as a compliment.
This week, Danger is our middle name. Evening all, welcome to This Week, the show that is to BBC schedulers what President Trump is to truth, strangers. And speaking of strangers, in Helsinki this week, a former KGB agent met up with a KFC customer. The KGB agent said, "We have your number." The KFC customer said, "If you give me a bucket of drumsticks and a side order of freedom fries, I'll give you my nuclear codes." Out of this exchange, a new world order is emerging, and I think we can look to the future with confidence. Now, the KGB guy asked, why had the Kentucky Fried aficionado man, why had he advised the Maybot to sue the European Union? "We have enough Novichok for all 27 litres, he explained. "I'll pass that on," said KFC man. "Now, where are my drumsticks? And if you add a large Diet Coke, you can have Alaska back." "You drive a hard bargain," said KGB man, savouring the shape of things to come. Of course, it was back here in Brexit Blighty that the real action was happening. An out-of-order toilet in the Westminster Palace of Variety sported a sign saying, "If we can't fix a toilet in 6 weeks, what are our chances of negotiating Brexit in 8 months? I think we know the answer to that without resorting to lavatory humour. Speaking of those whose political careers have gone down the toilet, we have for your delectation tonight 4 classic cases of the genre. It's our last show of the summer, so we're spoiling you. I speak, of course, of Michael #Choo Portillo, Liz #4% Kendall, Miranda she's lovely green, and John #the tartan Spartan Nicholson. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Michael, your moment of the year.
Of the political year, I'm going to choose a moment whose significance has grown with time, and it was, I think, in December of 2017, when, to settle a European Union summit, we agreed to the backstop provisions for Northern Ireland, which said more or less that if nothing else could be agreed, that Northern Ireland would remain in a customs union so that there'd be no border with the Republic. And that has become the driver of Brexit policy since. And that is really what has destroyed Theresa May's Mansion House speech.
It's haunted her ever since, hasn't it?
Haunted her ever since. And I imagine she understood the significance at the time, but I think lots of people did not. But they certainly know now how important it was.
We do indeed. A very good moment. Liz.
I mean, it's hard to pick from all the various Trump escapades, but I am going to go for this week's summit. I mean, publicly, he said that the US was partly to blame for Russian aggression and that he believed Putin over his own intelligence agencies. God knows what he said in private.
The KGB knows.
I'm sure they do. But for me, really, I was watching the summit on the BBC and then it flipped back to the trade bill and the fact that the government was stuck in a cupboard with the ERG and Jacob Rees-Mogg. And I just thought, when so much is going on in the world, Britain's vacated the pitch, and that just about summed up politics for me this year so far.
Another good moment. John?
I'm going to choose something quite personal and political in a way. There was a kid, a young guy, teenager, who got queer bashed outside Glasgow
Queer
recently. Yeah.
Bash for being gay.
Bash for being gay. And because we think of Scotland as a very progressive country now for gay rights, but all he did was walk down the street and he got gay bashed. And on the way home, he decided to take, blood was running down his face, and he decided to take a selfie smiling with the blood running down his face. It was a very dramatic picture. He tweeted it and he Facebooked it and went viral. And the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, happened to be leading the Gay Pride March. As Donald Trump was at his golf course in Scotland, she was leading the Gay Pride March. It's the first time a First Minister or Prime Minister has done this. And she was the Grand Marshal, and she name-checked this boy, and she said, the whole country supports you and stands with you. And I thought, he was 19, and I thought when I was 19, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister. I don't think she'd have been on a Gay Pride March. I don't think she'd have been name-checking me. And I would not have imagined at that age that anybody would have supported me. And for that kid, just looking around the country, he must think I had a terrible experience, but what a kind society I live in overall.
Have they caught who did it?
As far as I know, they've got some names, but I don't know if they've caught him. And you can Google the picture, it's very dramatic.
All right, thank you. You a moment?
Well, like Liz, I was sort of going through my mental index of all of the Trump moments, but actually it's the one this week when the President of the United States decided to back out of what he had said at the Helsinki summit about the likelihood or otherwise of the Russians being responsible for various outrages in the US presidential election. And I actually watched the clip about 5 times of the President of the United States saying, when I said would, I actually meant to say would not. And I just had a complete sort of mental meltdown, really. I thought, this is where we are now. You know, all the normal rules of behaviour in politics, in diplomacy, in how you conduct yourself in office have been blown up. So, you know, I just think we're in such dramatically strange times. That kind of sums it up. You can say anything and then to tell people you said the opposite.
Almost as good as Mr. Clinton saying it depends what the meaning of is.
Well, that was pretty good too.
So American presidents have form on this.
That was pretty good too.
Anyway, since it's our last show of the summer, we have a dubious This Week treat for you. Yes, it's the unwelcome return of the This Week selfie, or twelfie. Those in these temperatures, though, they might better describe it as a swelfie. Anyway, we need you to take pictures of yourselves, all hot and bothered, with proof that you're watching the programme, and tweet it to us at #12fie. That's #12fie. Now, if we get enough of your sweaty snaps and we can rouse our summer interns from their blue nun-induced slumbers, we'll edit your pictures into our closing credits. Extra points for ice-cold German wine, We Love Andrew hats, garish trousers and shirts in the choo-choo mode, and dogs and sunglasses. Now, a horse called Brexit Means Brexit ran in the 5:10 at Lingfield yesterday. I kid you not. He was easily beaten by another called Trouble and Strife. Those who backed Brexit Means Brexit have called for a steward's inquiry, claiming the horse must have been drugged, since it clearly had no idea where it was going. But Alistair Campbell has vowed to fight any attempt to run the race again, since this time his horse won. Yes, for the past year, every aspect of our country's life has in some way been enveloped in the fog of the baffling Brexit process. And in such complex, frustrating times, it's tempting to look for guidance from a simpler age, a bygone era. No, I'm not talking about Jacobs Rees-Mogg. In 1967, Britain wasn't even in the common market. Politics was more honest, more dependable, as illustrated by the fact that a nice, clean-cut young man called Jeremy Thorpe had just become leader of the Liberal Party. It was also the year that our best-known international man of mystery, Austin Liam Powers, was cryogenically frozen to be unthawed when his country needed him. In our darkest hours, we have turned to him, and we do so again today, when we sent him onto the groovy streets of Westminster, baby, to see what he made of politics today.
We must kill Austin Liam Powers and bring about a new socialist utopia.
And thwart Brexit while we're about it.
British politics has never been groovier, baby. The economy's booming, sort of, and the shagalicious Brexit dividends are about to land in our pockets. Oh, and this week's going off air for a whole 2 months. Yes, darling. Wonderful. Yes. The Maybot was hoping for a photo finish this summer. Oh, like a robot. Like a robot. But the Cabinet's poses have been less than fabulous. I mean, May's lost her Bojo and that nice man from the SAS. Oh, like an animal. You're like a wild thing, a Brexiteerian Waitrose. Yes. And with the party divided over Europe, it's less swinging 60s and more back to the 80s. Oh, yes, yes. Oh. And I'm spent.
Oh, Austin. Things aren't going well. It should be party time a go-go for Labour, but we can't seem to find our mojo. Even with the government in chaos, we're barely ahead in the polls.
Oh, Basilicious.
Hello, Austin. Hello, Vanessa. How's my formidable duo today? Now listen very carefully. Your mission is an urgent one. Dr. Evil is out to destroy you both and establish a socialist utopia. Only you can stop him. You must do whatever it takes. I've even heard rumour of a new centrist party. Make of that what you will. The word is that Dr. Evil and his accomplice, Frau Green, are at Lulu's. You have no time to lose.
Sir, I hear this Brexit dividend is like the drink that keeps on flowing. Positively shagadelic.
Well, Austin, I'm not so sure about that. But I'd gladly take the extra cash for the NHS.
They're here. This is our chance to take them down.
Look at them, squabbling like Jacob Rees-Mogg and Anna Soubry in a lift.
Worse than a cabinet away day to decide which custom solution will replace the never-ending transition period.
Oh, there you are.
Do I know you?
No, but that's where you are. You're there. You there. Groovy moves. A nice union chap. But what's this?
You just wait, Powers. Brexit will bring Armageddon. And when it does, you will be the first to suffer. No more imported blue nuts for you. Nice! Or die!
Baby, I hear you, but Tony Pooh. Hello?
Austin, you must get out now. It's travel chaos, and you'll never make it to Chequers unless you hop on it. Dr. Evil has swooped in to take advantage of the Transport Secretary's one-way ticket to rail oblivion, and it's set to be gridlock out there.
Now, where were we?
My evil plans aren't gaining traction fast enough. Get me Vince on the phone. I need 1 billion Lib Dem councillors to support the socialist cause.
Herr Doctor, the hashtag Lib Dem fightback is still in the embryonic stages despite the landslide gain of 75 councillors in the local elections.
What about UKIP then? I hear they were parking their tanks on Labour lawns. I like the sound of heavy weaponry even if it means fraternising with the right.
The last they ever heard of, Henry Bolton was auditioning for Love Island, and Nigel Farage has gone fishing.
Well then, we'll have to rely on spreadsheet Phil coming good on his promise to increase taxation to fund Tory spending. Let's live a little, vicariously.
Austin, I've got a gift for you.
Oh, fantastic. What is it? A tube of poison so I can thwart Dr. Evil?
No, it's toothpaste.
Oh?
You use it to clean your teeth.
The poor PM. She has had an extremely tough year. Perhaps she just needs to sit down.
Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership.
Why must I be surrounded by frickin' idiots?
Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership.
The Maybot is advancing the socialist cause all by herself. Bring in the little red book!
And our thanks to the Groovy Loop Bar, the shagadelic London Rain and Small Car Big City. I have no idea what I'm saying or how they all managed to put up with Liam. Michael, the consensus is it's been a pretty shambolic, appalling year for the Prime Minister and the Tories and Brexit in general. So let me put an alternative point of view for the sake of discussion. The Prime Minister has secured her legislation, the withdrawal bill. They're 80% there on what withdrawal should mean. She has won all the major votes in the House of Commons, and she's still there. Discuss.
All of those are true, but it's very hard to see how she's going to get to where she wants to be, which is the Chequers deal, or, let's be realistic, Chequers minus, because something's going to have to be given up.
Because Brussels will take things away.
Or, as Liz calls it, Chequers plus, because she wants it to go the other way. It's very hard to see how that's going to get through, because the Brexiteers now believe that she is a traitor. This has been a betrayal, and it's a betrayal that has resulted from treachery. That's also the view of a large number of Conservative voters. So there's clearly enough votes to defeat that piece of legislation, unless there's an enormous rebellion in the Labour Party, let's say 60 Labour members who are willing to vote the thing through, which I think might not be a bad outcome. But I think Liz is almost bound to tell us that that is almost impossible for that to happen. And so what I think will happen, and it'll be interesting to see what Liz thinks about this too, is you would think then that we might simply crash out of the European Union, but I don't think the House of Commons is going to allow that to happen. I think the House of Commons will go for a suspension of Article 50. I now regard that as the most likely outcome.
Which, of course, would still require all 27 other members of the EU to agree. Yeah. And when you look at what's happening in Italy or Poland or Austria or even Germany, they might have a price for that, which the other parts of Europe won't pay. Italy is about to crash into Brussels with a massive budget deficit. They might say, we won't support you unless you agree to our deficit. The important point, though, is this idea that the government, that Mrs May could be bailed out by Labour. Now, Michael kind of preempted what you think, but I would suggest that isn't going to happen.
I don't think it will. You know, personally, I can't vote for a deal that doesn't cover 80% of the economy, which is services. I think that the autumn looks very dangerous, not just for the Prime Minister, but for the country. We could well see some sort of constitutional crisis happening. I do think this possibility, I think it would need a new Tory leader to request an extension of Article 50. I think probably that would have to be a Brexiteer, because
they wouldn't trust it otherwise.
Because they wouldn't trust it otherwise. But what I saw in the Commons doing Monday and Tuesday on all those votes, without doubt, was a sense that the Jacob Rees-Mogg and the ERG were calling the shots. Their amendments were accepted without question. Remainers, I saw myself the pressure they were put under and the threats that they had. And I think it's absolutely in deadlock now. And whilst May is still there, I'm not sure that she will get through this. She won't get her plan through.
Sorry, may I just offer a view on that? Because Anna Soubry is pushing this point as well. You know that
She's a Tory MP, Remainer.
The Brexiteers are in charge. What Mrs May has brought from the Chequers Agreement is something which most Conservative Remainers can vote for and no Conservative Brexiteers can vote for. So in the long run, and in all the things that matter, the Remainers have won and the Brexiteers have lost. Now, on a detail, last week it's true that they had to whip the Remainers and treat them pretty harshly. But that is only because the Brexiteers have already lost and the Remainers have already won.
All right, let me bring in Miranda. The problem that we will... I mean, Mrs May in some ways has had a better year than predicted. It's been a terrible year, but she is still there, and being there does kind of matter. You know, people say she's the zombie Prime Minister. But as every teenager will tell you who watches zombie movies, zombies are really hard to kill. And Mrs May is proving pretty hard to kill politically. But she's got this problem now of her own making, because she called the election, of the parliamentary arithmetic. There is almost certainly no majority for a Chequers minus deal, which is what the best she can hope for in Brussels. There is no majority, as Michael says, for no deal. Indeed, there's a massive majority against no deal in Parliament. So does that not mean if Parliament can't resolve this, does a second referendum of some sort begin to move up the agenda?
I think it has moved up the agenda. And I think also the sort of likelihood of extreme outcomes that we thought were very unlikely a year ago. So in a sense, my problem with where we've got to now is that I believe that this country has not changed in its very nature in the last few years. And I think this country is interested in a sensible compromise. The worry is what's happened with the House of Commons is you've got this deadlock and you've got some people thinking that a no-deal scenario would be better. You've got a whole lot of other people sort of gaming over-enthusiastically that they can get to a situation where they can reverse the referendum and pretend the referendum never happened, which is not possible. It's not politically possible, even if it was possible sort of technically. So my worry is that we end up in one of two extremes, or with people trying to work for one of two extremes, a very hard Brexit, or trying to pretend that we can rejoin the EU and nothing's really happened, when actually the nation is interested in a sensible compromise in the middle, which is difficult to achieve given the parliamentary arithmetic that you've described.
Well, you say the nation's interested in a sensible compromise. We don't know that. And Mrs May thinks that the Chequers Agreement is a sensible compromise. It keeps a lot of what being in Europe means, but it also gives up a lot of what the Brexiteers think is important. I come back to the point, sensible or not, I don't think there's a majority for it in the Commons.
Well, it's very difficult to see a way through, isn't it, for her? But then, as Michael says, who wants to get rid of her at this stage? They're both terrified. Both sides are terrified of who could replace her.
Well, I'll tell you when they'll want to get rid of her. If she takes this agreement to Brussels, the Chequers Agreement, and allows Brussels to knock huge chunks out of it.
Which will inevitably happen.
That then becomes the most dangerous time for her.
Actually, this extension...
Isn't that right?
This extension, yes. This extension of Article 50, I noticed that Ian Blackford raised that at Prime Minister's Questions this week.
That's the Tory, the SNP
group leader
in Westminster.
and he asked her, he talked about the chaos and he said, will you now extend Article 50? And she was very dismissive, but she didn't leave any room for any wiggle room at all. She said, no.
If we're up against a chaotic, not just no deal, but crashing out, which we cannot have happen, it would be a disaster. The only option is to try and lengthen the period. She can't do it, which is why I think the leadership
If she tried to do it, there would be an immediate challenge to her. But I think you're all underestimating how... This isn't just a decision for the Commission.
It's not.
If it was a decision just for the Commission in Brussels to say, OK, there's a lot more we still have to do. It's your fault, by the way, you the British, but we will do it. Yes, I could see that. But all 27 members...
Have to agree.
And they have... there's at least 10 different reasons why they would demand a price.
Because they would want something in return.
Yes.
One thing that we haven't discussed is because there is a real sense of fear about what might happen in the autumn, we still have to have the trade and customs bills got to go to the Lords and then come back. I wonder whether if the Lords amend the bill and it comes back to the customs, more Tory MPs will say, to the Commons will say, we need a safety net. We need the customs union. We lost that vote this week, but when it comes back, they may just say we need a safety net because we fear this is all going to crash out. So that's something that may well happen.
The point you raised a moment ago as to whether, as the Commission begins to knock holes in the Chequers deal, whether that puts her in danger. I think it does, in the sense that, the Brexiteers will be bent on vengeance because they want to destroy this woman who's betrayed them. But there's no reason to believe that getting rid of Mrs May brings the Brexiteers any nearer to the solution
No, it doesn't change the arithmetic at all.
Doesn't change the arithmetic.
But it may change the politics for the reason Liz gave. They would not trust Mrs May to take them into an extended Article 50, but they might trust a sort of
true believer,
a true Brexiteer.
And who would that be? That's the question. Because
but also
Boris Johnson's speech this week, I mean, there were such high expectations
we don't
of it,
know
weren't
that,
there?
But let me...
there are other people
about who it would be. We don't really know until it is clear that Mrs May is going to go. Because that then changes the whole leadership business. If this was November 1974 and Ted Heath had just lost 2 elections and the Tories were agreed they needed a new leader, nobody here tonight would be saying Margaret Thatcher. And yet by February of the next year, she was the next Tory leader.
And the Tories are always surprised with their leader, don't they?
It sets off an uncontrolled explosion.
It's never the person you expect in the Tory leadership elections.
But I don't understand why you think they'd trust anyone, Brexiteer or not Brexiteer, with an extension of Article 50. Article 50 is complete defeat for Brexit. Because, I mean, the extension might easily be indefinite. Why would you trust anybody to do that? That is the moment at which...
Well, they probably...
Finally,
because they had their own person in, they would think...
Finally, the referendum's been torn up.
Miranda, here's the thing, that for all the shambolic backwards and forwards, in a sense, nothing for the parties, quite remarkable, nothing for the parties has really changed. The Tories came out of the 2017 election in a mess. They're still in a mess. Labour had a great election, or a good election, put it that way. They didn't win, but they had a good election. But they've not exactly soared in the polls. The Scottish Nationalists are no closer to independence than they were a year ago, and the Lib Dems are still marginal to requirements. In that sense, nothing in party politics has changed.
It's
rigor mortis.
It is deadlocked, and also that also draws attention to the fact that all this talk about changing the leaders, you can't really change the fundamentals, and so a new Conservative leader would face all the same fundamentals. And as for the Labour Party, do they really want power now? Because surely it's better for them to wait and leave Brexit as the Tory mess. They could talk about it even as this Tory Brexit.
Indeed.
It's very convenient for them to sit back.
I'm afraid we're going to have to move on because we've got international matters to attend to as well. But I have a feeling that late autumn is going to be a seminal watershed point in British politics. Now it's late. Brandon Lewis and Jo Swinson late. Yes, there was much consternation among the political classes after Tory Brandon Lewis breached his pairing arrangement with Lib Dem Jo Swinson, whereby neither would vote in crucial divisions in the Commons. No sooner was Jo busy changing her new baby's nappies than Brandon snuck into the chamber and voted with the government. Cue much understandable wailing about the dastardly Tories, marred only by those doughty champions of Remain, Vince the Cable and Thingamajig Farron, current and former Lib Dem leaders who failed to turn up at all for a crucial Brexit vote. Maybe they paired themselves. I don't think that's how pairing is meant to work. Someone who you can certainly rely on in a tight spot is musician and songwriter Wayne Coyne from The Flaming Lips. He's putting happiness in the spotlight tonight. And speaking of happiness, I would be beyond delighted if you would light up my evening with your wise and witty twitterings, your playfully profound fleecebooking, and your perspicacious, sagacious snap-numptifying. And if you believe that, you'll also believe the Russians never attempted to interfere in the 2016 US election. A TV celebrity is elected President of the United States. He travels the world like a bull in a global china shop, smashing the international order, threatening trusted allies, cozying up to old foes. He seems to trust the Russian president more than his own security services. Media reports he doesn't like are dismissed as fake news, even when he's quoted accurately and there's a tape to prove it. Occasionally, when the outrage gets too much, he simply says he misspoke, confirming that English probably isn't his first language. So where does he come from? We have not been able to establish if Emperor Donaldo Trumpito has a secret base inside a heavily armed volcano in the South Pacific, but we think there's a high chance he does. So we turn once more to our international man of mystery, Austin Liam Powers, and we sent him out to save the world.
Hello, Austin. It's bad news, I'm afraid. It seems the threat is much bigger than we thought. There's a man out there with very small hands, but with very big ideas. Head to the casino. It seems that Dr. Evil is using it for more than just taking a gamble on the socialist project.
Hit me. I like to live dangerously.
But maybe that's theft. I mean, that's one of the biggest thefts in the history of the world. It's like a US-China trade deal.
A 2 and a 3, stick or twist.
Oh, stick.
I suggest you hit, sir.
But I like to live dangerously too. Gambling is good and easy. It's a win-win, and hey, maybe we'll get together and make a trade deal. Ah.
Downstairs. $10.
Ah.
Dr. Evil, I have been taking inspiration from world events. I think I have finally found a way to outsmart Austin Powers.
A sausage factory? Apparently the humble worst is winning over world leaders from Trump to President Macron.
No, my idea is the highest level of special. He will never be able to resist my North Korean Manambong band fembots that I have developed.
Fembots! Oh, blow my mind! Oh,
Quick,
Fembots.
Austin! We've got to get out of here before you're more beguiled than Trump with that dreadful little rocket man.
Fembots!
Pull yourself together, man. Think unsexy thoughts.
Nigel Farage holding a fish! Nigel Farage holding a fish! Nigel Farage holding a fish! Fembots, 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 groovy fembots. And we're off!
Oh no, Austin, don't touch that! Heaven knows what the Russians may have put on it.
Well, no problem. A quick wipe with this, and apparently it'll be sold as a pound.
Your next mission is to beat Dr. Evil back to his lair and put a stop to this nonsense once and for all.
Oh, Austin! Your manoeuvring is even more useless than Bojo's. Let me in the driving seat.
Quick! I think I can see some of Dr. Evil's henchmen. Quick! Quick!
Don't you have Chancellor Merkel on speed dial, darling?
No.
She's a master at negotiating herself out of a tight spot, especially in the face of incoming visitors. Just ask Horst Seehofer.
Time travel really is a wonderful thing. We have beaten Powers by hours. Perhaps we could make millions by giving trips to all those poor fools who voted for Brexit and who now regret it.
Good idea, although all this tension is upsetting Mr. Bigglesworth. It's his European roots. He's unsettled by the future of the EU.
Then sing him a lullaby!
Macron wants a budget. Merkel is cautious.
Who will
Can
emerge
we
as
the
the strongest EU power?
Vanessa, you wait here, baby. Keep my seat warm. I'm just going to thwart Dr. Evil's plans to deliver his socialist utopia.
Just remember, Austin, don't lose your head. And don't fall for any of his mad schemes.
So we meet again, Powers.
It seems we do, Dr. Evil.
I had no idea your hands were so small, Powers.
But not so small they can't pick this dandruff off your collar. You have to look perfect for your evil scheme meeting. What do I do? It's Brexit, and it's a mess.
I knew we'd get you in the end, Powers. That deal is covered with toxic bath products from Trump Tower, and I knew you couldn't resist getting your grubby little hands on it.
Oh, I've got an idea. We need to clean it up. We need to sort it out. We need to go for a clean Brexit. Brussels will be happy with this. There you go.
You may have won the battle, Powers, but you haven't won the war. I'll deliver my socialist utopia yet.
In a laboratory deep in the bowels of Westminster, the Maybot has at last perfected the art of cryogenic freezing. She plans to emerge thousands of years hence, when she no longer has to worry about whether Brexit means Brexit or something else entirely. And the only question mark over strength and stability will be whether her circuitry has survived the freezing process.
And although it's only July, I think we can safely say that's the BAFTAs sorted out for another year. Michael, the international order seems a strange place because of Mr. Trump, but let me suggest to you there is a new architecture taking shape. And that architecture is that that America is pivoting to the Pacific, that is increasingly becoming the focus of its concerns and its policy, that Europe will have to do more for itself, that America will not be there big time for much longer. And in the Middle East, there are major changes taking place there. The West has lost Syria, it's lost Assad, the Russians have their warm water port, and they'll have to accept, and America will be out of the Middle East, other than Israel, quite shortly as well. The 21st century is taking shape before our eyes.
I think all of that is true, although there are a couple of very large jokers in the middle of it. I think we really don't know what the Russian relationship with the United States is, because it is so contradictory, not just in the way that Miranda mentioned, but it is true that Trump has taken quite strong anti-Russian action at the same time as being apparently Putin's puppet on the stage. I don't think we have any real idea about what the Korean situation is. There was this summit, but it didn't achieve anything in particular, and what we thought it had achieved is now being dismantled. So there are some very big holes in this picture. I also think the picture is substantially reversible by a different president of the United States. A lot of this is pretty personal. But certainly that is what we're living with at the moment. And if there's any leadership in Europe, and that's a very big if, the leadership in Europe actually ought to be much more worried about all of that than it is about Brexit.
But this change is happening, and it actually began under Clinton. It continued under Mr. Obama. It's gathered pace and been expressed in a more vulgar way under Mr. Trump. But it's happening. And I think the United States has less interest in Europe now than ever before. And Mr. Trump and much of America wants to get out of the Middle East. And they don't need to be there because they're self-sufficient in oil and gas now.
Well, 90% of their domestic energy
They don't need to be there. And I think one of the things that happened in Helsinki, which has been entirely underreported, is that Mr. Trump said to Mr. Putin, we recognize Syria is your protectorate. We recognize that. What you have to do is get Iran out of the southern part of Syria, and that's what the Israelis and the Saudis want as well. Now, as these huge changes are taking place, I would suggest to you that Europe, which has had time to prepare for this, is totally unprepared for it.
I agree with that. And just as I felt that Britain has vacated the pitch, so too, perhaps with Macron as the exception, We are mired in our own issues across Europe with immigration, the rise of the right in Austria and Italy.
Migration is the single biggest issue in every major European country now. All the polls show that.
And what I think is interesting, just a slight tangent, is that when Macron beat Le Pen and when the Dutch general election didn't produce a right-wing government, too many people in Europe, I think, breathed a sigh of relief rather than understanding the long-standing issues and concerns people had about economic insecurity and immigration, which is why we are focused on those rather than what is happening in the rest of the world. And I think I agree with Michael that whilst Trump's domestic agenda may have quite long-lasting effects, I'm not so sure on aspects of his foreign policy.
You see, it is becoming the foreign policy consensus in America that Europe has to do more now.
Oh, yes.
It's increasingly the foreign policy consensus that America, other than its unshakable commitment to Israel, really the more it's out of the Middle East, the better. And Michael quite rightly says this is a portrait of which huge parts are yet to be painted in. That's because we've only just started to see the portrait. But two things have happened in the past 24 hours that show where this portrait will be painted in. One is that Mr. Trump has now invited Mr. Putin to Washington in the autumn to continue what has happened in Helsinki. And secondly, playing to the European situation, the poll came out today. Sweden has a general election in September. Sweden, one of the most progressive, moderate, sensible, prosperous countries in Europe, in which the Sweden Democrats, not the Social Democrats, the Sweden Democrats, the hard right, which Sweden has never had for 3 generations, is now topping the polls. And the election's in September.
Well, because this phenomenon is happening across the West. And, you know, Trumpism and Brexit and these other countries that Sweden you've highlighted, you know, it's all a reaction to this phenomenon of mass migration. I think that Liz made a very interesting point, because it's almost as if nations are sort of turning inward, focusing on how to act defensively against these issues that are worrying their populations, and actually almost as if everyone is making world affairs and stability and maintaining the architecture that's worked for us since the Second World War. That's very much a sort of second-order issue, because domestic politics
nothing is forever.
Absolutely. I mean, I hope Michael is right, though, that actually some of this foreign policy attitude from America at the moment is kind of reversible.
Well,
you know,
I really wouldn't count on it, because
we can't do without America, really.
I really couldn't count on it, because, you know, I visit the States a lot, and more the discussion there is about China. It's not about you, but I need to bring John in, because he has to. I think where this plays back into Brexit, where what's happening in Europe is of influence, is that there is a chances that Brexit goes into its most messy period at a time when Europe has other major fish to fry, that the Visegrad group of East European countries is in open conflict with Brussels, that the Italian populist government is in open conflict with Brussels, Mrs. Merkel is the walking wounded, and who knows what the outcome of the Sweden election will be. It could be, we think Brexit's a mess. The whole thing could be a mess.
And what a terrible time for us to be walking away from Europe at the very time that we should be deep in the heart of Europe with our traditional democratic values.
But we're not deep in that. We aren't part of the euro, so we've got nothing to do with it. We're not deep in the heart of Europe. We're not in the euro, and we're not in Schengen.
That's true that we're not, but we play an important political role, as you know, and we're walking away. You know what? There was talking of Trump. Trump gave a very interesting interview to Fox today, and because we were all very concerned about what he might do on the NATO question, whether or not he would honour Article 5, how safe Estonia feels, what private assurances he might...
What was the outcome?
Well, do you know what he said? He said that he often asked himself why... He was asked whether American soldiers should go off and die for Montenegro, and he said, I often ask myself precisely that question.
Which means not Article 5, which is the keystone, has never been less than a few seconds.
An American consensus that NATO needs to do more, an American consensus about China being very important. There is no American consensus on the New Deal with Russia.
Absolutely.
That is a Trumpism which is not supported by the American
consensus. You don't know the shape of that New Deal yet, but maybe we'll find out, because the Americans would say in the fall. We need to move on. Because I want to ask you, what is happiness? Cartoonist Charles Schulz said it was a warm puppy. Comedian George Burns said it was having a large, close-knit family in another city. It's not clear if the Prime Minister has purchased a puppy recently, but she's certainly looking a lot happier than she did only a few days ago, probably because she's made it through to the summer recess. Enjoy it while it lasts, Prime Minister. Happiness has a habit of disappearing fast, which is why tonight we're putting happiness in the spotlight.
Who's running the country, Prime Minister? Are the Brexiteers in charge?
Despite recent knocks and scrapes, the Prime Minister is often at pains to tell us how happy she is.
I'm very happy. I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy.
Shame her backbenchers aren't so chipper.
Oh, God. It was Margaret Thatcher that championed free trade.
I knew Margaret Thatcher. I worked for Margaret Thatcher. My honourable friend ain't no Margaret Thatcher.
After enduring Her Majesty's company over the weekend, the Donald cheered himself up by working on his bromance with Vladimir Putin.
The World Cup, one of the best ever. Great job. I'm sure we'll be meeting again in the future, often. A good competitor he is. It's a compliment. That's very nice. They think it's Russia. President Putin, he just said it's not Russia. I don't see any reason why it would be.
Shame he was so giddy that he managed to mince his words.
The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative.
Well, the president's predecessor seems positive about life away from the White House.
A joy to be back with so many people who are family to me and so many people who claim to be family to me.
And from one bundle of joy to another.
3 days after she became the proud grandmother of Holly, I call the mother of the house, Harriet Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night's shambles over the vote of the honourable member for East Dunbartonshire should put it beyond doubt that pairing is not the answer for MPs having babies.
So what is happiness? Whatever it is, Wayne Coyne thinks it's contagious. And Wayne joins us now. Wayne, welcome to the programme.
Oh, well, thank you. This is wonderful.
Are you a happy chappy?
You know, I think I am. I think I am now that I'm older, and I think by comparison, and not you, but I mean, you obviously as you get older and your friends are older, you run into older people who don't seem very happy. You know,
they seem moaning,
tired, and they're
complaining. Honestly,
and I think by comparison to some other older people or whatever, I think I probably appear to be energetic and well off or whatever.
We've only just met, but I get that feeling.
Well, thank you.
And don't you think it's contagious?
Well, I do, but I think the other part is contagious as well. I mean, I think that idea of us, what we're putting into the world. I know some of that does sound hokey because you want to be taken, serious enough at it, but the idea that you're, the way you are, probably attracts or repels people to that. And I sort of like the idea that I like being surrounded by, like you seem to be, like sort of people that are listening and people that are interested.
Positive people.
Yeah,
see,
positive and energetic
See,
people.
I think that's right. I think it does, because I think unhappiness is contagious as well.
It is.
Tom Peters, the great American management guru, he once said to me, there's only one kind of person you need to fire in any organization, and that's the miserable person in the corner, because they bring everybody else down.
Yeah. Well, no, that's true, and maybe but a lot of us don't really have the power to fire our brothers and sisters. Or
would you like it? Because we could probably arrange it.
But
some people are happy being miserable. You see, John there.
That's
John
true.
is
I'm dour.
Yeah.
And
I never smile. I just don't see the point.
No,
really.
Right.
Then he's happy being miserable.
I was going to say that's part of it as well.
We're happy being miserable.
Yeah, we would allow that. Yeah.
America's not very happy.
Or it can be an entertaining kind of miserable. That's different than just really being a curmudgeon that hates everybody.
Two great countries. the United Kingdom and the United States. They don't seem very happy at the moment.
Well, I don't ever think of it as like there's one temperature.
No, there's no one. Someone once wrote an article on election day in America. It rained in America today. No, it doesn't. It can rain in Britain,
right?
But it doesn't rain in America. It may rain in Washington or
or
Illinois.
You know, I mean, if we let, I mean, like something like the World Cup. You know, I mean, I love when, you know, something as really unimportant like sports, when it can become so important.
Yes.
But only, I say, hopefully only for the good. You know, that if we win, we get to celebrate and we say, wow, isn't this wonderful? We've made this magic moment really out of nothing.
And we don't
just
take
a bunch
it out
of guys.
on anybody else.
And was there an age when happiness kicked in?
Well, I think I was lucky that when I was
Because
young.
I want a year to look forward to.
Well, see, I didn't realize that I was happy. You know, and I think when I was younger, I took it as being. I wasn't, you know,
It's not very
worldly
arty
enough.
to be happy.
Right,
is it?
exactly.
It's
You have
not
to
arty.
anguish.
You've got to
Right.
be
You have the
suffering,
anguish in your
exactly.
Parisian attic.
Well, yeah, you know,
produce great
and
art.
I would run into lots of people that would have that, like, is that an affectation where you're really quite nice, but everybody that's around you, you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not, and that's impossible. You know, I mean, who has time? And
No,
that's too much
exactly.
work. You know, and I think. We played with a group called the Jesus and Mary Chain, you know, back in 1984, maybe it was. And they were the perfect example of, you know, we loved their music, but they were completely miserable. And we thought, we didn't know it for sure, but we had an inkling, maybe this is just an act. And we actually we played a show with them, and they walked in about 3 hours late, and they were actually miserable.
Like Simon and Garfunkel.
They're probably not. They're more miserable than them.
More
miserable. Yeah.
What do you think of this? Are you happy? In our final few seconds of our last summer show,
I think on the whole you should get happier as you get older because you put things in proportion and you shed stress.
and
stress.
you've got there.
Yeah,
I
think
would
so.
say that's you have
I
got
think you
happier.
decide what's important.
Liz, you've still to experience this.
I would say you know, for me, being happy is about love and being loved. If you're happy personally, it can help you get through any difficulties in your
Very
work.
well.
And I'd say that's where I am at the
Very
moment.
well, and you have a happy face on tonight. John, despite your Celtic demeanour, you're actually a very happy chap.
I am. I'm in the prime of middle youth. I think it's a good place to be, and I'm in love and in a happy relationship.
There you go.
And that makes me happy.
It does make
And we
with
don't
you,
even
Matt.
have to ask Miranda because she's a picture of happiness. Just look at it now. Wait, what are you up to? What brings you here?
We're playing shows around the UK. We go to Ireland, we go to Wales, all that. Yeah, playing
Great.
shows around here, around town. And,
That's miserable Wales.
No!
Just ignore it. Wales is a lovely story. You have to answer all the letters. Have a great tour.
Thank you,
of our
sir. Thank you for
country.
having me. It's great. It's great to be on your show here.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, works well. Now, that's your note for tonight, folks, but not for us because we're off to Lulu's to celebrate another year of getting away with this drivel on the BBC and to put the finishing touches to our summer holiday plans. Michael plans to jump aboard the Boris Express, destined for Brexit del Sol. Liz has applied for work experience on Dear Jezza's vegetable patch. She'll enjoy that. John is off to the Highlands, where the midges are already licking their lips in anticipation. John Nicholson. And Miranda is off to play the princess in Disneyland. She doesn't have to act, she just is herself. Speaking of Regal, President Macron has asked me to try out the diving board on his new swimming pool in the south of France. He says if I bring a crate of Blue Nun, he might even put some water in it. We'll be back on September the 20th. I know you're missing us already. Nighty-night. Don't let the 12th bite.
So it came time to fight. I thought I'll just step To surrender, I just wept and regretted this moment. Oh, but I don't know where the sun beams and the starlight begin. It's all history.
I'm travelling to Trumpland to meet his supporters.
I think he's awesome. I'm telling you, he does what he says. If you're going to come all this way to hang out with the Southern boys, you've got to learn the ways of the Southern boy.
We were headed into the pits of socialism. Don't you know?
He represents the America I once knew. It's dangerous to start from the assumption that voters are wrong.
Meet the people behind the Trump Revolution.
Can you see the world through their eyes rather than yours?
Travels in Trumpland with Ed Balls. Starts Sunday the 29th of July on BBC Two.
Be moved by the magic of the BBC Proms. Listen to every prom live on BBC Radio 3. With every prom also available on the BBC iPlayer radio app, you won't have to miss a single note. Go to bbc.co.uk